What's good, YouTube? Warstorm here, coming at you guys with another video today. Today I'll be updating one of my personal favorite decks, which is Pendulum Magicians. Now today I'll be using some of the new video deck profiling stuff I did mentioned previously. I'll be doing that today. So if you guys want to skip to the deck profile, feel free to skip below to the link down in the description box, so you can skip to the actual deck profile, because I know that's one. But a lot of you guys probably want to hear what I think of Pendulum Magicians, because they actually have been doing pretty decently at big events. So we'll talk about it. So Pendulum Magicians, since Electro, even with one Electromite and the hits we've received over the 2018 year, are still a viable deck. Deck in 2018 into 2019. They did very well. They did very well with YCS Milan. So I would say where Pendulum Magicians are right now is at about a tier 2 level. They're a lot around the same level as Burning Abyss, because Burning Abyss with a good pilot can do very well at a premier event. The same thing goes for Pendulum Magicians. With a very good pilot, it can do well at a high tier event. But it's going to have problems when you have to play, when you get to the top, at times you get to that top cut and have to play against the better decks, and there are just other decks running around that do what Pendulum Magicians do better. But with all that out of the way, we'll talk about the main kind of like 4 top decks right now, and then we'll move on to the other things. So one of the matchups I think is actually pretty favorable for Pendulum Magicians is Altergeist. Altergeist is a bit hit or miss, because people are switching away from running cards like Anti-Spell Fragrance into maybe Secret Village with Spellcasters, which doesn't hurt Pendulum Magicians nearly as much. Altergeist is a somewhat favorable matchup, because Pendulum Magicians can easily put beaters on the board every single turn, and in my experience, Altergeist really do struggle to deal with recurring monsters every turn. It's really hard for them to deal with anything that's above about like about 1700, because unless they can go into the link 2. So it's I would say it's about a somewhat favorable matchup. It can be very difficult if they do get set up, but it's not the scariest deck in the world, and you can usually swarm them, especially going first. It's really, without a card, as long as you have a negation for something like Evenly Matched, you should have a pretty easy time against Altergeist. As far as the other deck, Sky Striker is one of those decks where it's in a very unfavorable matchup for you, no matter how you slice it. They have searchable outs for your big boss monsters in the form of Widow Anchor. If they have a Widow Anchor, your Vortex Dragon can't really do anything. You're going to have to make main choices in your extra deck for this particular matchup. Karen Gorgon is going to be very important against this matchup. It is definitely I would say, leaning towards unfavorable for this matchup, simply because it's just the amount of outs they're going to have for the boards you set up are going to be really difficult, and it's going to be difficult for you to clear their field once they get set up. That's also going to mean side deck cards like Denko Seka are going to be very, very important against Sky Striker, so this is definitely not a so much favorable matchup. The other matchup that's actually, I think, also not very favorable is kind of the Link spam decks. This is kind of a syndrome of where a lot of these Link variant decks do what your deck does better. You need combo pieces in hand, and they can make Gumblar Dragon and take those pieces out of your hand. They also can make number 86, and your deck needs to summon monsters, so it's very difficult. This is definitely an unfavorable matchup. It also doesn't help that Pendulum Magicians can't really afford to play a lot of hand traps, because it's a very combo intensive deck. You need 2 to 3 card combos to get moving, whereas in the case of Dark Link, it can do its shenanigans with just 2 cards. So it's definitely not a super favorable matchup of the bunch. Now, one that's a little bit more favorable, surprisingly, is actually Thunder Dragons. Thunder Dragon is an interesting matchup, because Colossus, you would think, would slow down a Pendulum deck, but Pendulum Magicians can function well under, much like Sky Striker, in the sense they can resource out their deck without having to actually search. You can resolve all 3 of Electromite's effects under Colossus. The only card you really can't are Pendulum Call and the Mythical Beast package, so those definitely do suffer. And if Thunder Dragons are big at your locals, you might want to replace Mythical Beast with maybe a Bissact or Curtain Raiser. And the deck has very easy answers to Colossus in the form of things like Ignister, and in the case of this deck, since we are featuring cards from Savage Strike, Cyber's Quantum Dragon also outs it. There's just so many cards that I think, but and the deck can easily get rid of Colossus with things like 101 as well. I think it's a super favorable matchup. Just it's leaning towards favorable. Titan doesn't really, if you have Pendulum Call up, Titan really doesn't hurt your plays that much, although it can be used to. And if you, once you get a monster online and properly are able to chain block their Titan, it is very difficult for them to get to clear your field. I do think I would say it. So overall, I would say I would push this to say Pendulum Magicians have about a 50-50 split against the top tier decks right now. So if you have good luck over a long event, you could do well with the deck, and you possibly could get your regional qualifier with the deck, but it's definitely not the best choice of the format, kind of to summarize. So with all the way, we're moving on to the deck profile. So one of the things you might notice is that this deck is sitting at 42 cards, and my main reason for that is that I just want consistency cards. Ash Blossom is something that I wanted to include in the main deck, but again, I think this could also be called by the grave. It's really up to you. Since Magicians are a combo-based deck, you could have called in the main, all your hand traps on the side. It's really up to you. But most of the ratios, I think, are pretty staple for you guys. Chronograph at 3. We all know how good that is. It started out of your deck. Oath Dragon's been a 2 of in every list I've ever had. Wisdom Eye is one of the better cards in the deck. One of the interesting things changed about this list as opposed to previous list is actually an inclusion of Dino Wrestler Panca Tops, as well as the Third Desires and the extra Dragon Shrine for the main deck. The list that did well at Milan played 3 Avian, and in testing, Avian has been absolutely fantastic. You can definitely play 3, but since I am main decking the Panca Tops, which we'll get to in a moment, I'm running the 2 Avians to prevent myself from having situations where I have multiples of both these cards and not pendulum starters. It's mathematically, it makes more sense, but if you're putting Panca Tops in your side deck, you can have 3 Avians in the main deck. The card is fantastic. It's a negation on legs. You can resummon it multiple times in a turn with Chronograph. It just allows you, and it's a 2,700 body, which is a big number. The fact that it keeps recurring every turn is just really, really powerful. The next, as far as Panca Tops, or Panca Tops, whatever you want to call it, it's just, I really like the card because it adds another dimension to the deck. It's another level 7, so you can use it to make your absolute Vortex play. But the other thing I really like about it is it's not bad drawing first, because you can simply Pendulum summon it out. It is a quick effect pop, which is really good against decks like Sky Striker. Can be really disruptive against decks that, if you're playing against the Dark Goki Link deck and they open a connector, you activate Panca Tops to pop one of their warriors. If they don't have an extender like Monster Reborn, they're going to have a hard time getting going. It allows you, it also works really well against Summon Sorceress, because you can pop her before she has to stay on the board in order to summon from the deck. So it's also pretty dang good against Sky Striker because it hits their set cards before they can activate them, which can come up at times. It can dodge removal things like Widow Anchor, and it can also pop multi-roll, which is really, really big. It's something I am in the testing phase in, but I really do like the theory behind the card. As far as other changes, the Mythical Beast package can, like I mentioned earlier, can also be Curtain Raiser. I do think the card is, I just love the package and the stuff it enables for the deck, and it makes Naruto a lot easier, and it's a consistency engine. But yes, it does lose to Droll and Lockbird and other, anti-search cards, so you need to think about that when you do use it. As far as if you do not have the Ash Blossoms, Effect Veiler is by far one of the best hand traps in the game right now. As I mentioned in my Prankid video, it's fantastic against Prankids. Veiler can replace Ash Blossom but no card does exactly what Ash Blossom does. I want to emphasize that if you have them, use them, but understand that there's not a card in the game that does what it does. As far as Desires being at 3, a lot of people, this is some reason such a debated topic, but Pendulum Magicians need to see as many combo pieces as possible. And seeing Desires 10% more is I think is worth the extra maybe 5% you might draw second one. And yes, you can draw Desires into Desires, but I don't think that, that kind of should be in your deck building thing. I've loved the card. The card has been fantastic to me and all the time. I've played it in Pendulum Magicians, and people have been running it at 3 for a while now, so I'm getting on the bandwagon. As far as the changes in the extra deck, one of the things you might notice is that most of the Synchro lineup is gone, and that makes me sad, but I'm going to be honest with you guys. Omega, some of the Synchros we were playing aren't as good as they once were. Clearwing is a good card, but the problem with it is Colossus doesn't necessarily care, and it also triggers, if you kill the links with it, it triggers Ray and Grave, which you don't want to do, and it's just not really that good right now. I mean, it doesn't really do a lot against Altergeist because you want to clear their back row, not worrying about their monsters. It doesn't really do as much as I'd like, whereas Quantum Dragon, which you're getting in Savage Strike, does a lot. It can protect your link monster. While you control a link monster, it forces your opponent to attack into it, and of course it has a bounce effect when it battles an opponent's monster, which means it protects you from Boral Sword Dragon from ruining your day. So that's one of the main reasons I'm playing it over other options, because, and as far as Savage Dragon over, Ignister and Omega and other 8s you could be playing, I do like Omega because it recycles your one of Electromite, but I don't really like playing it just for that reason. And Ignister is still a fantastic card, but I just feel like having a negate on legs is just better, and you have other means of clearing threats before you make plays in the deck now. Don't get me wrong, I love the card, but everything Ignister does, Boral Load can already, and 101 can already do. If you have an annoying threat that you can't get out of the way, you could probably make Vortex Dragon bounces things, Boral Load and Boral Sword get over things. Everything that Ignister would get over, the Boral Loads and 101 get over as well. Whereas Savage Dragon is a negate on legs. Whenever he Synchro Summon, he equips a link monster from the grave, and equips Boral counters on it, gains attack, and when they activate a card or effect, remove the counter and negate that. It does not destroy, so if you do negate something like a monster effect with it, it'll stay on the board. But being able to have that negation and having a monster that will be sitting at anywhere from 3750, if it's equipped with Electromite, it'll be at 3900. It can be get pretty dang big. So it's definitely one of the chase cards in Savage Strike for a reason. I really do like it. As far as the other extra decks, Summon Sorceress has been a card that I've removed. Yes, you can make it with Wee Witch's Apprentice, but it's a bit you're kind of like making kind of obsolete plays in order to bring her out. It's not to say you can't. It's just I feel like this lineup is just better. I also have Underclock in here because Mythical Beast Cerberus is not a dark monster, so there will be awkward scenarios where you'll have Cerberus in your extra monster zone, but you can't make Wee Witch because he's a light attribute. So I have Underclock in here. Until we get a Link 2 that has down arrow and left arrow that is better, I will be playing Underclock in almost all my decks. The Boral Dragons, if Boral Sword is stupidly expensive right now, ridiculously so, but if you have it, you should play it. Don't get me wrong, I feel like it's a little ridiculous how much it is, but it is that much for a reason. It ends games on its own, and it can protect your board from attacks. It's just a fantastic card. I still like Boral Dragon as well because Colossus exists, because these big boss monsters that exist, and Boral outs most of them. It's also fantastic against Thunder Dragon, the other fusion Titan, because when they try to discard from hand, you can activate Boral Dragon's effect to cut its attack down, which will prevent Titan from activating its pop effect. Really big and really good against that matchup. Metaltron is in here over Decode Talker, but you could definitely play Decode Talker instead because it does help against Striker. I just like Metaltron because it has the extra zones and it works really well with Vortex Dragon. As far as new additions, 101 has been something I've been seeing in a lot of deck lists, and I concur with the logic behind it. Most of the time when Thunder Dragons play against your deck, they will most of the time summon Colossus in attack mode, because it doesn't have a lot of defense, I believe only 2100, so they will summon Colossus in attack mode, which means you can 101 it. Alternatively, you could play Castell, but what makes 101 better is that when it takes that Colossus, it also can protect itself from Titan's pop effect. So that's a really big thing, is if you take their Colossus and they try to use it, make a Titan to pop it and get it off the field, it has that extra protection. And of course, Link monsters all have to be in attack mode, and because Goblin is banned, you can use this to suck up almost any Link monster that's getting in your way, provided it's not like a Boral Dragon or something that can't be targeted. So I do think 101 is definitely a fine addition to the deck, and it's cool to see the card back in relevancy. Karen Gorgon is a fantastic card against Sky Striker and to an extent Altergeist. It has to. Now it doesn't. Well, against Altergeist it's a bit iffy because it does target one card on the field, so you can use this against, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, this hits. You can use this to redirect Silkidus. You can use this to redirect almost all of the Sky Striker spells and traps because they all target. You redirect a Widow Anchor, redirect a Afterburners, redirect a Jamming Waves. Pretty much all of their cards target one specific card, and you can use this to redirect all of them, and that is really good in that matchup. It's also at 2450, which is a pretty big body. It's got most of the Sky Striker links. They'll have to have a lot of spells engraved to get rid of this. Like Kagari would have to have like I think 7 or something crazy high to get it out of the way. So I really do like it. So all of the way, guys, I hope you guys did enjoy this deck profile today and enjoyed this new structure. And let me know how you guys like it down in the comment section below. Do you like this style more, not, going over every card, or do you like the old style? Let me know it in the comment section down below. And as always, thank you guys for watching. Swarstorm, signing out.